Good morning. It is now Friday, January 26, 2024. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is another special report on the crisis in Texas. As of this morning, the count of states that are, quote, standing with Texas, unquote, is now 25. That's half the country. Not surprising. One of them is Alaska, by the way, and that's interesting. I don't know how they're going to be affected by all of this. And I don't know how many of these states are sending troops to the border. Doesn't seem to be a significant amount. It's a political battle more than a military one. You don't have tanks and armed guards and things such as that down at the border to the extent that you might think. Now, the legacy media, the mainstream, as they call it, is really playing this down. They're reporting it, but they're not really showing troops. They're not showing much except for local law enforcement dealing with razor wire and putting up containers. But Texas is starting to arrest illegal immigrants. Now, there's a law that's supposed to be taking effect in another couple of months, but they're already choosing to enforce it. This is a political battle. Now, the Biden administration has given Texas a 24-hour deadline to comply, which I find interesting. Now, I looked around and I couldn't find when that 24-hour deadline is up. But the Biden administration had the power to federalize the National Guard of Texas to do its bidding. My understanding is that requires a certain legal process that must be applied to a national emergency. However, the Biden administration, having caused the national emergency or allowed it to happen, well, this is getting all pretty confusing. Let me tell you what this is really going to mean. First off, I don't see how the Texas camp is going to back down. Not just the governor, but there's a lot of local politicians that are down at the border that are riding this horse, and they're not going to surrender. Do I think that there's going to be an open battle between federal law enforcement and the Texas National Guard? No, I don't, because the people who were guarding the border were ordered out of certain areas by locals, and they left. The Biden administration, by putting a deadline down and not just federalizing things, knows it's in a weak position, and it's not going to get any stronger. One of the things about criminals, and criminals, again, are people who think of what they can get away with, and it would be hard to argue against the current administration of the United States being anything less than criminal or even treasonous. There's always overreach. They always go too far. Criminals always go too far, which is how they get caught. The Biden administration and the people behind it did not see this one coming, and they don't really know what to do. Federalizing the troops is something they could have done yesterday. They didn't. Probably because they're scared if they try to do that, not everybody's going to go along with it. Now, some of the more disturbing footage I've seen of people coming across the border, there was one report of a known terrorist being spotted on a camera. I haven't been able to verify that. I mean, a known terrorist from the Middle East who came across. But one of the more disturbing bits of footage I saw was a whole group of Chinese men, just men, all with military-style haircuts, apparently in good physical condition, and waiting to cross the border. Could they be a group of refugees? Possibly, but we don't know who they are. And this has been going on for years. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes, because someone's going to lose. Now, if Texas backs down, the governor's career is over, as is the respective careers of various members of the political establishment of that state. And Texans tend to be real fighters when it comes to politics. If the Biden administration loses and backs down, they've shown how weak they are, and that is something that they really can't afford to do, because once the federal government shows that you can stand up to it and refuse its orders, refuse its commands, it's demonstrated that it does not have the power of life or death over you that it wants to project, that can lead to all sorts of very, very nasty things, at least as far as the federal government's concerned. Because once a government loses its perception of power and control, the average person sees that and takes advantage of it. So the Biden administration can't afford to lose this one. The people in Texas can't politically. But let me tell you this. If Texas loses this, if Texas succumbs to this federal insanity of allowing millions and millions and millions of illegals coming into the country, illegals that are being reported on all over of committing heinous crimes of rape, murder, robbery, automobile accidents are through the roof because we have people coming into this country who don't even know how to drive, who are just jumping into cars and causing all sorts of mayhem. If Texas loses, the whole country loses. If Texas loses, the United States is done. Maybe not immediately, but we're done. Because if a country can't secure its borders, it can't secure its existence. And don't tell me there aren't a lot of enemies of the United States around the world who for decades have been hoping something like this would happen. And it's very doubtful that none of our enemies in other lands haven't had a hand in this. We have been attacked by enemies foreign and domestic, and the domestic ones are in positions of power right now, and they have been for a while. Yesterday I was asked by someone, where is all this going to go? Do you think this? Do you think that someone's going to do this? Well, you don't really know. Because at the end of the day, it always goes down to one little incident that could set something off. That happened in Lexington in 1775. Someone fired a gun. We still don't know, and we will never know who did, but that was the shot heard around the world. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, there was a case of a Soviet submarine commander who refused to follow instructions to fire a nuclear-tipped torpedo at the American blockade around Cuba. That man, and I'm sorry I don't remember his name offhand, literally saved the planet because he said no. There were supposed to be 3 people in a Soviet submarine that would allow the release of a nuclear weapon, in this case a nuclear torpedo. 2 of the people, I believe it was the political officer and the first officer, said yes, and he said no, and he refused. And thank goodness he did. It all comes down to a couple of people and an unpredictable situation, which is what we have. I'll tell you, the dice are in the air right now. And this is to put another history lesson out here, because we're dealing with history. And it's going to go one way or the other. This is not a small event. It's going to go one way or the other. Now, there's always a story about Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon. The Rubicon River was the border where a Roman general couldn't take his legions unless he was given permission by the Senate of Rome. Now, history has reported that when Julius Caesar decided to do that, he said, the die is cast. However, there are some historians, and I'm one of them, that goes along with another analysis that he was actually referring to a saying of the time, which was a little more flippant. In other words, let's just see what happens. What Julius Caesar probably said was not the die is cast. What he said was, toss the dice. Let's see what comes up. And I think that's exactly where we are right now. Good old Julius was right. Sometimes you just got to toss the dice. I'll be covering this story as much as I can as it unfolds. And again, if you like what you hear, if you like my particular style of reporting, please like and subscribe. Please consider a paid subscription. It will free up my time. More of you have been doing that, and that is greatly appreciated. But more of you need to do that as well. Making money as a journalist is not an easy thing to do anymore, which is why so many of us have day jobs. The other thing, too, is I do welcome feedback. You can reach me at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback, one word, at aureliancolumn.com. And yes, I do have a Twitter/X account. My ID there is MICCAMPEN, microphone, camera, pen. Again, that is @ MICCAMPEN at Twitter. You can follow me there. I do put some interesting posts up there. Anyways, thank you for listening. Be good, be safe, be vigilant, and good day.